Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. As we know, instructed by our academic deputy vice chancellor, this week lecture face-to-face is must be avoided, okay, due to the COVID-19 spread out in our country. So all lecturers must give a virtual lecture. So that's why I came out with this video to teach you on chapter 4. The title of this chapter is Environmental Audit. Okay guys, whenever you are right now, I hope that all of you take precautions on COVID-19. Try to avoid mass gathering. Try to contacting with sick people. Take precautions on your hygiene and stay safe, yeah? Okay, I'm going to start with my lecture. Okay, we go first with the definition of environmental audit. So what is audit actually? Okay, before we go further, let me give you one example on personal opinion. Okay, every semester when you get your results, what do? You must be reflect to the previous semester. What have you done with every subject that you have taken that reflects to your examination results, all right? So maybe you reflect, what have I done? How do I perform for every assessment that given by the lecturers? Do I go to class regularly? Do I understand what the lecturer teach me? Do I understand the topics? Do I focus in my final examination? Do I get sick? Do I have a health problem? Okay, that will reflect to your result for each semester, right? So when you reflect, it means you are checking. When you checking, it means you are auditing yourself. So that is what we call as a audit. So by definition, audit is a systematic and documented verification process of what you have set in your EMS. So what you have set in your EMS is objectively activities or purpose. So you need to clarify during an audit process by providing evidence. Okay, by doing this audit, so it will confirm the criteria that's set by the organization to communicate this result. Okay, in a simple sentence, audit is a systematic, independent internal review to check whether the results of environmental work tally with the target. Meaning that when you are working with a company that implement EMS in the future, so there will be an auditor who will come to your company and check what have you done in your EMS that you have put in your objective in EMS, what we call it as a environmental performance. So this auditor will come to check, have you performed on what you have stated in your EMS. Alright, a little bit overview of environmental audits. Audits is actually provide information on the environmental performance of a company. So it will include the environmental issue, and this will help the top management to make a decision. Audit also assess the nature and extent of harm to the environment caused by the activities, waste or noise from a particular company. When an audit report is published, it must be independent, it must be objective, credible and transparent in order to be successful. And audit should also be regular and ongoing. It cannot be a one-time auditing. It must be regularly because in EMS we want to improve our environmental performance. Okay, just a little bit about the history of environmental audit. Actually, it was originated in 1970s in United States and Western Europe. So at that time, the developed country want to adopt environmental legislation in order to reduce harmful consequences of the company towards the environment. Because we know that every industry will give impact to the environment. Okay, so it is important for the developed and developing countries to implement the audit. Environmental audit will introduce the rest of the world by multinational companies which demand their subsidiaries and suppliers to have green credentials. So meaning that from top to bottom, management or organization, they have to implement the audit system to know the environmental performance. Okay, recently, environmental audit has been used as an extremely valuable tool for every organization to know their performance. Okay, in EMS, to assess their policy and their equipment. Normally, audit will provide a company with a recommendation on how it can improve its environmental management practice and reduce the impact that a company is having to the environment. Actually, audit is not a judging session, but it's more on reporting and suggesting on how to make improvement in the future. So greater awareness and understanding of environmental issue will lead to the Supreme Audit Institution to introduce the environmental auditing in the public sector. Okay, how do we approach environmental audit? In public sector, there are two forms of auditing, which are internal audit and external audit. So what is internal audit? Basically, before we bring the internal person to audit our company, we will appoint our staff in the company to be an auditor. This is the internal auditor. So the management must train our internal auditor, send them to a training how to become an auditor. So during internal audit, this auditor will take all reasonable efforts to address known risks and prevent violations. And then this internal audit will check the compliance with legislation and standard requirement. Internal audit also will assess the EMS performance and determine the strengths and weaknesses for the effective implementation of environmental plans, policies, practices, controls, and records. After internal auditing session conducted in company, and then we will appoint external audit to come. Basically, the external audit is the certified company such as Sirim Cars International to come to our company and make an audit session. Okay, for external audit, their role is to prepare for EMS certification application, to assess performance for the EMS certification compliance. Quite different. The role with the internal audit. Internal audit is more on checking, but the external audit is more on to validate and to give a certificate to the company. Okay, and finally, external audit we prepare for ISO 14000 series certification, and they will also recommend us if we comply to some of the ISO cert. They will suggest us to prepare for other ISO 14000 that related, okay, to our organization. Okay, what areas we can conduct the environmental audits? It actually, or I can say that it's a holistic approach of environmental audit. So this I listed here 11 areas that contribute to the environmental audit. They are material management, energy management, water management and economy of use, waste generation, management and disposal. This is all the environmental elements. Noise reduction, evaluation and control. The area that included also air emission and indoor air quality, transportation and traveling practices, staff awareness, participation and training in environmental issue, and then environmental information publicity, public inquiry and complaint response, and lastly, environmental management system setup, suitability and performance. Okay, we go to the types of audit. Okay, the first one is compliance audits. What is compliance audits? It is the most common types of audit and have been used by the most company who implement the EMS, because every time our operations in our company, we will reflect to the environmental legislation and company policy. So this audit meanings the checking to check whether our company have complied to the legislation or policy that we have set up. Okay, compliance audits may be multimedia or programmatic. What is multimedia audits? It involves identify and audit all environmental media such as air, water, waste, and many more that apply to the operation of the company. But for programmatic audit, or we call it as a thematic or media specific, is more limited. It's not involving a multimedia, but it's limited to the specific area such as air, or you want to conduct on wastewater only, or you want to conduct on water only, or you want to conduct on energy efficiency only, and so on. Okay, and then number 2, issues audit. It is an evaluation of how a company activities relate to a specific environmental issue, such as global pollution or energy use. Issue audit is normally cater for a general issue, okay, such as energy use and global pollution. Okay, and then number 3 is a site audit. If you want to particularly examine a site, okay, so you may conduct this site audit, because this audit of a particular site to examine the actual or potential environmental problems. And then number 4 is due diligence audit. It is an assessment of potential environmental and financial risks and liabilities carried out because of company merger or site acquisition or divestiture. I remember that last time when I was a kid, okay, there are so many banks we have, and then suddenly, due to the economic crisis in our country, this bank has merger, okay, 2 or 3 banks has merged become one to sustain their economic condition. Okay, so in this case, they must do an audit. They must check what activities that they have done in previous company to the new one. So this is called as a due diligence audit. Okay, number 5 is a product or life cycle audit. It is an analysis of environmental impacts of a product throughout all stages of its design, production, use and disposal, including its reuse and recycling. Okay, we will learn the life cycle assessment in a subsequent chapter, and this related to these types of audit, product or life cycle audit. It's only apply for the product manufacturing company, and it's not applicable to the service company. Okay, and then number 6 is liability audit. Okay, it determines whether or not a company is in compliance with applicable law or regulations. And then number 7, management audit, to determine whether or not a company is meeting its stated goal, objective and policies. And number 8, activity-specific audit, look at the performance of a company in a specific issue like carbon emission or waste reduction. If compared to the issue audit is more general, but for activity-specific audit is more scoping, okay, and focus to a specific area. Let's go to the auditing phase. So how many phases do we need when we want to conduct an audit session? It's actually, we have 3 stages of auditing phase. The first one is pre-audit stage, the second one is audit stage, and then the third one is post-audit stage. So what happened during pre-audit stage? It requires a full management commitment. Management should hire the internal auditor, the auditee within the company, and then management must set the overall goals, objective, scope and priorities. and then select a team to ensure objectivity and professional competence. Okay, during pre-audit stage, it will involve the auditee and the internal auditor only. And then during the audit stage, it involves on-site audit, well-defined and systematic using protocols or checklists, and then review of documents and records, review of policies, interviews, and site inspections. Basically, for audit stage, it will involve internal and external auditor. And for post-audit stage, the auditor will evaluate the findings of what activities they have conducted during the audit stage, and then they will give a summary and document finding from the session. They will make an action plan based on the results for future plans, inform the relevant internal and external stakeholder, and make plans to repeat the audit process in the future. All of these activities is for the sake of the environmental improvement on the EMS that conducted within the organization. Okay, what is protocols? Okay, in environmental audits, we must have a protocol. Protocol means a checklist used by the auditor as the guide for conducting the audit activities. It means that what we must do first, what we must do next, and all of these checklists must be documented and must be recorded. So the current technology supports many versions of computer-based protocols, not like previous years where auditing session is doing manually. Okay, but now we have a computer technology to support the auditing session, and most of them to simplify the audit process is by converting the regulatory requirement into question with yes and no and not applicable checkbox. So it must be easier session for the auditor to conduct an audit session. And then other auditor also use permits directly as a protocol. Okay, this is the protocol of environmental audit. If you see, there are 6 stages. So the first one, the auditor must set the context, getting the commitment of top management by establish the environmental auditing units or program. And then in stage 2A, we must plan the audit and get the audit team. This relates to the scoping, get background information, identify the method to conduct the audit, and determine the priority area. And then stage 2B, undertake the audit through questionnaire or interview or site inspection. Number 3, evaluate findings by describing the impacts, linkage, and significance, as well as find out alternative, provide recommendation. And then stage 4, report on the summary of finding and make recommendation to stakeholder for them to make informed decision on pertinent issue. What is stakeholder? Stakeholder is all the persons that related to the specific issue. For example, if you want to conduct an audit in your company, who is your stakeholder? It must be a top management, it must be your staff, it must be your management staff, admin staff, technical staff, and all related. Okay, all related person, we call it as a stakeholder. And then stage 5 is implement the necessary action based on the audit and any changes with the regard to the organization operation and policy. And finally, in stage 6 is a verification and feedback are necessary to ensure accuracy, audit impartiality, and improvement. So in this protocol, meaning that you have to go through stage by stage. You cannot jump from stage 2A to stage 4. No, you have to follow the sequence from stage 1 to stage 2A to 2B to 3 and so on. Okay, for the results of environmental audit, it must be presented as a report by the auditor. It is important in the report, the auditor assessment must include information on what to do next. Okay, remember, we want to improve our environmental performance, so there must be a suggestions on what to do next. Okay, The report should be meaningful and useful so that it can help the organization to improve. Okay, remember, it's not a judgmental, but it's based on what the company performance. Okay, the organization need to conduct a follow-up program includes develop a better action plan, implement. When you develop, you implement the action plan, and then you check and monitoring the process, and finally review the action plan process. The report is not a judgment, nor it is an opinion of the auditor. It should be confidential, traceable, and supported with other documents. It should also be clear. Okay, it must be straightforward sentence, straightforward information, and straightforward reporting. Concise, complete, easily understood, and should meet certain quality. Okay, these are general characteristics of audit report. Okay, I repeat it again. The audit report must be confidential, sufficient support of finding, no opinions or judgment. It must be a quality, understandable, accurate, and must have a feedback. Okay, what are the benefits when we conduct this environmental audit? So the first one, it ensuring compliance. Okay, we want to comply with the law. Okay, not only with the law, regulation and standard, but also with the company policy and the requirement of EMS. And number two, audit will enable environmental problem and risk to be anticipated and response plan. And then number three, to demonstrate that organization is aware of its impact upon the environment through providing feedback, increase awareness among stakeholders, and finally, more efficient resource use and financial savings. Improve environmental practice and environmental friendly technology often save money in the long run. So this is the highlight that you need to convince your top management when you want to implement EMS and audit in your company. Okay, I think that's all for this chapter. It's quite a short chapter, but it's quite boring also. So I hope that all of you can focus with my online presentation, and thank you for commitment and thank you for listening. See you in the next chapter. Bye bye.